Ohio State is set to enter Big Ten play, and Ryan Day doesn't feel good about anything. It's a rapid reaction practice report, whatever you want to call it. It's a Lettermen Row. That's the 41-year bet, Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom and me, Spencer Holbrook. Let's talk about it, Tim. Just talked to Jim Knowles. We talked to Ryan Day, and we talked to Will Howard. One thing, what'd you learn?
That Ryan Day had his game face on early this week. Well, he probably puts it on at the same time every week, but he was pretty much no nonsense.
Yeah.
And when I asked him about the running game, do you feel satisfied, or about your run game, the word I usually probably should have used is, as he said it, I mouthed it back to him, is confidence. They have gained confidence in like their run game, but like he said, you're never happy about anything at this point in a season, because the whole idea is to be getting better next week than you were last week. And but he clearly was serious today.
Yeah.
Not that he's ever up there telling jokes and playing tricks, but Ryan Day understands what's at stake. He wants to get after it. He wants his team to get after it.
What'd you learn, Andy?
Defensive tackle Tyleik Williams is still day to day, and the defensive line conversation was pretty heavy today, especially about the interior defensive line without Tyleik Williams. They're hoping to get him back, obviously, for this week against Michigan State. But if they don't, the question is who will start. There's a chance that it's Tywone Malone. They probably talked about him with the most praise today between Ryan Day as well as Jim Knowles. But really, the bottom line is that it was a mixed bag performance. That's the way they're describing it from the interior of that defensive line. We saw a lot of guys get involved. Tywone Malone, Hero Kanu was the one who started. We also saw Jason Moore. We saw Caden McDonald. They went through the line there. They had some good plays. They also had some bad plays. We're looking for more consistency from the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, I think if Ty Hamilton was the one missing, you'd probably see more of Caden McDonald because he's such a natural nose tackle. But the fact that it's Tyleik Williams, sorry, there's Tyleik, and there's Tywone. There's a lot of ties going on here. I'm going to get tongue-tied. The fact that it's Tyleik Williams who's missing, the fact that it's Tyleik Williams who's missing, made it so Tywone Malone had a chance to shine in that three-tech role where we really thought that he could thrive if he started, getting it all figured out. And it looked like Saturday against a Marshall team that I don't think is great, that he did play pretty well. So you give him credit. But I thought it was interesting, both of you guys, I thought it was pretty interesting that Jim Knowles said it's one performance. But based on that performance, yes, he's earned more playing time. They're not using that as a measure of saying, yeah, he was consistent, because it was just one. If he goes out there against Michigan State and is pretty good, maybe you have a conversation about getting him more involved. But I did think it was interesting. He was the one that kept getting brought up, Tim, that he's the guy who emerged from that group who all were rotating in on Saturday.
Yeah, and and you could point to a couple of plays he made. That's what makes it illustratable, is a couple of plays he made, a fourth down play, for example. And so that he rose to the occasion, that occasion, or a couple of occasions, actually. So that's what he's basically talking about. I mean, we talked about this in the stadium on Monday about the defensive tackles, is Jim Knowles was talking, a couple of weeks ago to us, and basically saying that we needed to see that depth rise at the defensive tackle spots. We're sitting there watching these guys. The potential is definitely there in Hero Kanu and Caden McDonald and right on down the line, but they haven't played a whole lot. They haven't played those extended times against good teams.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's what's it going to be like? I think Ryan Day pointed that out. You're not playing one play or two plays and coming out. When you've got to play 3 or 4 or 5 plays in a row, 7 plays in a row on a drive or something, how are you on that 7th play? And some guys, you have to kind of grow into playing more, and because it is a physical task when you play in the interior of anybody's defensive line. So, but Tywone Malone, like I said, he had plays you could actually see, that he made. Of course, he's going to show out a little bit, but that's what they want,
I think it was interesting that when Ryan Day was asked about Tyleik's availability, he said he's going to give it a go today and we'll see how it goes. It sounds to me like, I didn't think that was the most confident that Ryan Day could have sounded with Tyleik, the way that he was confident that they were going to have Cody Simon back, despite listing Cody Simon as day-to-day after.
Yeah, the question for Tyleik comes after practice tomorrow when we get like 10 minutes with Ryan Day, because then they will have had 2 practices.
Yeah, because yesterday was more of like the intro to Michigan State week. Today's the first big boy practice of the week. Tomorrow's the second big boy practice. Then you go Thursday walkthrough, and then the best Fridays in football. So we will get a better sense, I would assume, tomorrow night from Ryan Day here on the practice field when he speaks. Andy, as we move forward here on the practice report, what else? What else did you learn? There's a lot to learn from whether it be Jim Knowles. He talked a lot about the linebackers, whether it be Will Howard, who talked a lot about the deep ball in the run game. It's kind of a, Sophie's choice for you to go wherever you'd like to go here.
I'm sticking with the defense because they didn't name a defensive player of the game, which was really interesting. And Jim Knowles said they didn't feel like they had that silver bullet performance of the game that they could honor after beating Marshall 49-14. So I think that more goes to show what the standard is right now for this Ohio State defense. They gave up 2 first-half touchdowns. They gave up 203 yards in the first half. Yes, they gave up barely anything in the second half. Now, again, the caveat there is that Marshall didn't have its starting quarterback most of the second half, and clearly Jim Knowles was not pleased with the output from his defense in the first half, but also not pleased with himself. He also took some ownership of the defense not playing to its ability in the first half there. So I think that is really important to note of where the barometer is for measuring this defense and the standard that they have for themselves, because it seems like no one was happy with giving up 14 points last weekend.
Yeah, remember, I've reminded y'all that Bobby Bowden line, though. At halftime they were up 28-14, Ohio State was, and Bobby Bowden used to tell his defense when they were leading at halftime, hey, they don't score, we win.
Yeah.
And it always comes back down to basics, and I thought it was, it helped Ohio State's defensive cause that, what was the quarterback's name? Stone Earl. How could I forget that? Stone Earl got knocked out of that game, but on top of it, I thought the defense came out and played so much better in the second half.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I think it's a very good sign. If you're an Ohio State fan, you should be very encouraged by them not giving out a defensive player of the game, by Jim Knowles' comments today and the actions that they've shown since Saturday. 49-14 was not good enough. And the output on the defensive side of the ball, no matter how you shake it, whether it was, the other team practices too, like you like to say, Tim, or, they got them on the scripted drive, which they really did a great job of with the offense coordinator, Seth Dagey, I think it is, and the game plan from Marshall coming out of the gate, impressive. You can tip your cap to them, but Ohio State also understands, we're Ohio State. This should not be happening. And for Jim Knowles to take that attitude all the way into not even naming a defensive player of the game, which sounds trivial, it sounds like a really small detail, but that goes a long way in setting the tone. That's the word I've been looking for, the phrase I've been looking for, setting the tone for what this defense has to be. Not what they want to be, but what they think they have to be.
About what's not good enough.
And what is good enough and what's not good enough. Western Michigan, that was good enough. And you don't have to shut a team down to the tune of 99 total yards of offense for an entire game. That's just not really plausible to expect from this defense every week. But the output that they had against Marshall just was not good enough. And I really, really like the tone that Jim Knowles is setting there.
Well, look, you got your first taste of red zone defense, and they weren't great in that department. You also weren't great on third down and fourth down situations. Could have been better, I guess. They were fine. And I think those are the two most important parts of a defense, right? Third down and red zone. And they probably targeted that because Ryan Day was asked about the pass rush. There was only 1 sack in this game against Marshall. There were 7 tackles for loss, but only 1 sack. And he said they don't really care about that. And we've heard that before, but it's more of what are you doing on third down and are you stopping the run?
Yeah.
And Marshall had, I think, 71 rushing yards in the first half. Again, barely anything on offense in the second half. But that's kind of the focus right now. Are you stopping the run? Are you getting off the field on third down? And are you good in the red zone? And they just weren't as good as they want to be in those areas.
Yeah, and they were bothered by a quarterback that could run. I mean, I'm not talking about dazzling, 50-yard runs, but they were bothered by Stone Earl's ability, as Jim Knowles kind of pointed out. Instead of giving up 2 or 3 yards, they gave up 4 or 5 yards. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he's right. Now all of a sudden you've got a 3rd and 1 instead of a 3rd and 5. I mean, it makes a difference on what you call, but also their possibility of converting third downs, which they did in the first half. Marshall did a good job on those 2 drives. They were aided and abetted, of course, by a couple of penalties on one for sure. But the bottom line is that's what wasn't good enough, was letting the quarterback still kind of do some things with his feet and beat you, because you knew he was capable of it. Well, they're going against a guy this week in Aiden Childs from Michigan State who's also capable of making plays with his feet. So they understand. They understand the klaxon bell has sounded.
I think he's better than Stone Earl and Braylon Braxton.
Yeah.
Those two combined, I think Stone Earl had 3, Braylon Braxton had 1. 4 different first downs picked up on the ground with the quarterback run, whether it was designed or scrambles. Guys, like, if you don't think Jonathan Smith is watching that film and saying, hey, Aiden, you can do this stuff, because he's a turnover machine when he puts the ball in the air. So if he keeps it on the ground, he's really dangerous. And so Ohio State's got to be better. And we're not sounding alarm bells here. I know some fans are in the business of doing that. We are not. But we also know when to caution, like, hey, this is something that is alarming. I don't know if it's super alarming yet, but I think it's something to monitor, because Aiden Childs, again, when he throws the ball, good things only happen like 30% of the time. When he runs the ball, good things happen. And so you've got to account for the quarterback and the quarterback run. It equates numbers. Ohio State's talked about that on its offensive side of the ball. Third down, red zone, that's where quarterback run can haunt you the most. And I think that's it sounds like, without them saying it out loud, it sounds like that's going to be, they know that they're aware that that's something that can beat them this week.
Yeah, it's also something they can use on offense with Will Howard, and I think he talked about that.
King of the transitions, folks. He does it again. Oh, my gosh.
They haven't unpacked the Will Howard dual threat ability yet, and he's excited to do that. You know, it's interesting. When we first talked to him back in the winter when he transferred in, he wanted to talk about how he ran the ball a lot at Kansas State. He wants to show what he can do with his arm.
Yeah.
Now he's talking about how excited he is to run the football, and he's really bought in. What they can do with him is that dual threat quarterback. And Ohio State has not unpacked that yet, and I think we'll start to see that in Big Ten play. And they can equate the numbers in the run game, and they can have the ability in the red zone and on third down. And I think as we go along in these next few weeks, we're going to see that more from Will Howard, and he's super excited about that.
Yeah, I'm going to write a little bit about that. That's what I'm talking about. As far as well as this rushing offense has played, they're number 12 or 13, 14 in the country, averaging 241 yards a game. They're second in the country in yards per carry. Now, everything's relative to who you played, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. But when you have established what you wanted to with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson being big playmakers, which they have done in this first 3 games, no matter who they're playing, now you throw in the specter of a quarterback who can run, who's hardly run so far. They've got it trending in the correct direction, especially with the way the offensive line has really gotten its mojo going here the first 3 games.
Yeah, after playing the Grove City YMCA for 3 weeks, now they get into Big Ten play, and you got to be a little better on both sides of the ball. And
I wouldn't call them a YMCA.
That's just where I'm a member, so it's the first thing that came to my head.
Okay.
I could have said LA Fitness or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
That's a little bit of they played decent teams. These weren't great teams. Marshall's got decent personnel. No, I said already.
Yeah.
It's relative.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're wankers.
We've reached the British portion. We've gone across the pond for the second straight week on a Tuesday. Last week it was France. This week it's England. We'll get to Germany eventually.
But the French call a certain I don't know what.
There it is, a movie reference of a lifetime, Tim's favorite. We're going to get out of here. We're going to go write about all of this stuff at lettermenrow.com. We've obviously got a lot to say, so we'll do this all again tomorrow night. After we hear from Ryan Day again, we'll hear from some players. Thursday, Andy and I will be on the live stream. We got Tim May's podcast on Wednesday. A good episode here in the works. And then Friday we'll have bold predictions before we head up to East Lansing for Saturday's action between Ohio State and Michigan State in Spartan Stadium. Tim May, the 41-year vet, Andy Baxter, Spencer Holbrook, the whole crew's making the trek up to East Lansing for that one. We'll see you guys there. We'll see you guys back in the Woody on Wednesday for another edition of the Practice Report. For now, like the video below, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and head to lettermenrow.com to get all of your Ohio State football coverage.